Joanne Rowling was born on the 31st of July, 1965, in the quiet town of Yate, located in Gloucestershire, England. It was not a place known for magic, mystery, or extraordinary events. It was ordinary, peaceful, and predictable. Yet, within this ordinary environment, an extraordinary imagination was quietly taking shape. From the very beginning, Joanne was not like most children. While others were content with games and routines, she was drawn towards stories. Not just reading them but creating them. Her mind was constantly active, filled with characters, conversations, and entire worlds that did not yet exist on paper. Her parents, Peter and Anne Rowling, lived a modest life. Her father worked as an aircraft engineer, a profession grounded in logic and precision, while her mother was deeply caring but struggled with health issues that would later affect the entire family. Joanne also had a younger sister, Diane, with whom she shared moments of childhood, though her inner world often remained uniquely her own. At a very young age, Joanne began writing stories for her sister. These were not simple tales. Even as a child, her storytelling had structure, imagination, and emotional depth. One of her earliest known stories was about a rabbit named Rabbit, a simple concept, yet a powerful sign of what was to come. School life, however, was not always comfortable. Joanne was intelligent, observant, and creative, but she did not always fit in. She often felt like an outsider, someone who saw the world differently. This feeling of not fully belonging would later become a powerful theme in her writing. Her relationship with her father was complex. There was distance, misunderstanding, and emotional difficulty. This lack of connection left an impact on her, shaping how she viewed authority, family, and emotional bonds. On the other hand, her mother's illness cast a long shadow over her teenage years. Watching someone you love suffer silently creates a kind of strength, but also a quiet sadness that never fully disappears. As Joanne entered her teenage years, her love for literature deepened. She was particularly inspired by classic authors and mythological stories. These influences can later be seen clearly in the structure and depth of the wizarding world she would eventually create. Despite her creative strengths, Joanne often struggled with self-doubt. She questioned herself, her abilities, and her place in the world. Yet, one thing remained constant: she never stopped imagining. After completing her school education, Joanne went on to attend the University of Exeter. There she studied French and the classics. It was a practical decision, one that aligned with career expectations. However, her heart was never fully in it. During lectures, her mind would wander. Instead of focusing entirely on academic material, she would find herself thinking about stories, characters, and ideas that had nothing to do with her coursework. Writing was not just a hobby anymore. It was becoming a necessity. Her university years were a mix of learning, exploration, and quiet internal struggle. She was building a future that seemed stable on the outside, but inside something else was growing, something far more powerful. After graduating, Joanne moved to London. She worked various jobs, including roles as a researcher and a bilingual secretary. Her life from the outside appeared normal. She was earning, surviving, and moving forward. But something was missing. She felt unfulfilled, as if she was living a life that did not truly belong to her. The routine, the structure, the predictability, it all felt limiting. Deep down, she knew she was meant to create something more meaningful. This feeling of restlessness is often where great journeys begin. At this stage in her life, Joanne Rowling was not famous. She was not successful in the traditional sense. She had no recognition, no wealth, and no clear path toward becoming a writer. But she had something far more important. She had a mind full of stories, and sometimes that is where true magic begins. This was only the beginning of her journey. The struggles, the heartbreak, the failures, and the unimaginable success were all still ahead of her. But one thing was certain: Joanne Rowling was not ordinary, and her story was about to change the world forever. It was the year 1990, and Joanne Rowling was traveling on a train from Manchester to London. It was supposed to be an ordinary journey, nothing unusual, nothing memorable. But sometimes the most ordinary moments become the beginning of something extraordinary. The train was delayed. Hours passed slowly, and there was nothing to do but sit and think. No phone to scroll through, no distractions, just silence and thought. And then suddenly an idea appeared. A boy. Thin, dark-haired, wearing glasses. A boy who did not yet know who he truly was. A boy who was, in fact, a wizard. This idea did not come fully formed. It arrived as a spark, a single thought, but it carried something powerful within it. Joanne did not have a pen with her, which made the moment even more intense. She could not write anything down, so she did something far more important. She remembered. She allowed the idea to grow inside her mind. She imagined the boy's life, his struggles, his loneliness, and the moment he would discover the truth about himself. She began to see a school, hidden from the ordinary world. A place filled with magic, danger, friendship, and destiny. By the time the train reached London, the foundation of what would later become Harry Potter was already alive within her. But life, as always, did not pause to celebrate this moment. Soon after this journey, Joanne faced one of the most painful experiences of her life. Her mother, who had been suffering from multiple sclerosis for years, passed away. The loss was devastating. It left a deep emotional mark on Joanne, one that would later shape the emotional core of her writing. The theme of loss, the absence of parents, the silent pain carried by characters, all of this would become a defining part of the Harry Potter story. Grief has a way of changing people. For Joanne, it deepened her understanding of human emotion. It gave her writing a level of honesty and depth that could not be taught. After this difficult period, Joanne decided to make a major change. She moved to Portugal, seeking a new beginning. There, she worked as an English teacher, trying to rebuild her life. In Portugal, she continued writing. The idea of Harry Potter was no longer just a thought. It was becoming a project, something real. She began putting her ideas onto paper, slowly shaping the world she had imagined on that train. During her time there, she got married and later gave birth to her daughter Jessica. For a moment, it seemed like life was stabilizing. But not everything lasts. Her marriage faced serious difficulties and eventually came to an end. Joanne found herself in a challenging situation once again, this time as a single mother. With her young daughter, she returned to the United Kingdom. But this return was not easy. It was not a fresh start filled with opportunity. It was a struggle. She had little money, no stable job, and a child to care for. She moved to Edinburgh, where she relied on state benefits to survive. Life had become incredibly difficult. There were moments when she felt completely lost. Moments when the future seemed uncertain. Moments when giving up would have been the easiest option. But she did not give up. Instead, she held on to the one thing that had always been hers, her story. Harry Potter was no longer just an idea. It was her hope. Day after day, she continued writing. Not in a perfect environment, not in comfort, but in small cafes, while her daughter slept beside her. She wrote whenever she could, using every quiet moment to build her story. This was not just writing anymore. This was survival. Every page she wrote was a step forward. Every chapter was proof that she was still moving, still fighting, still believing. The world did not yet know her name. No one was waiting for her story. No one was expecting her to succeed. But she continued anyway. Because sometimes the most powerful journeys begin when no one is watching. And sometimes the strongest people are the ones who refuse to stop, even when everything around them is falling apart. J.K Rowling was still unknown, still struggling, still searching. But the story she carried within her was growing stronger with every passing day. And soon the world would have no choice but to notice. Because magic, when it is real, cannot stay hidden forever. Back in Edinburgh, life had reached one of its most difficult points for J.K Rowling. She was a single mother, raising her young daughter Jessica with very limited financial support. The days were long, the nights were uncertain, and the future felt unclear. She was officially unemployed. There were moments when she felt completely defeated. She has openly spoken about experiencing depression during this time, describing it as one of the darkest periods of her life. It was not just about money or career. It was about identity, purpose, and survival. But even in that darkness, one thing remained constant. She kept writing. Every single day, Joanne would take her daughter out in a pram and walk to nearby cafes. These cafes became her workspace, her escape, and her silent support system. She would order a simple cup of coffee, sit down at a table, and continue building the world of Harry Potter. While her daughter slept beside her, Joanne wrote, page by page, line by line, word by word. This was not luxury writing. This was not comfort writing. This was writing driven by necessity, by belief, and by a deep refusal to give up. The manuscript slowly began to take shape. Characters became clearer. The world of Hogwarts expanded. The story developed structure, emotion, and direction. Finally, after countless hours of effort, the first manuscript of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was complete. For many people, this would feel like the finish line. For Joanne, it was only the beginning of another challenge. She began sending her manuscript to publishers. One after another, she waited for responses. And one after another, she received rejection letters. Not one, not two, but 12 different publishers turned her down. Some did not see potential in the story. Others believed that children's books were not commercially strong. A few simply were not interested. Each rejection could have ended the journey. Each rejection was a reason to stop. But Joanne refused to accept that her story was not worth telling. Instead of quitting, she kept trying. This level of persistence is rare. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet, consistent, and incredibly powerful. Eventually, her manuscript reached a small publishing house, Bloomsbury. Unlike the others, they decided to give it a chance. It was not a massive deal. It was not a grand celebration. It was simply an opportunity. And sometimes that is all it takes. Even then, Joanne was advised to find a regular job, because writing children's books was unlikely to provide financial stability. But what no one realized at the time was this. They were holding the beginning of something extraordinary when Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was finally published. No one expected it to become a global success. It was a quiet release. A small beginning. But readers noticed something different. Children were drawn into the story almost immediately. They connected with Harry. A boy who felt ordinary, misunderstood, and alone, yet carried something special within him. Adults too found themselves fascinated by the depth, emotion, and imagination within the story. Word began to spread. Slowly at first. Then rapidly. The book gained momentum. Sales increased. Reviews became stronger. Soon it was clear that this was not just another children's book. This was the beginning of a phenomenon. As the series continued, each new release became bigger than the last. The world of Hogwarts expanded, characters became iconic, and millions of readers across the globe became part of this magical journey. Translations began appearing in multiple languages. Countries across the world embraced the story. And just like that, J.K Rowling, once a struggling single mother sitting in cafes, became one of the most recognized authors in the world. But her success was not just about wealth or fame. It was about what she represented. She represented resilience. She represented courage. She represented the idea that failure is not the end, but part of the journey. Her story became proof that even in the lowest moments of life, something powerful can still be created. Today, her journey continues to inspire millions of people. Writers, dreamers, creators, and anyone who has ever felt like giving up. Because her story is not just about magic. It is about persistence. It is about believing in yourself when no one else does. And it is about continuing forward, even when the path is unclear. So if you are watching this right now and you feel stuck, if you feel like your efforts are not being recognized, if you feel like giving up, remember this story. Because the difference between failure and success is often just one decision. To keep going. And if this story inspired you, take a moment right now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs it. Because you never know. The next great story the world is waiting for might be yours.